Hi guys, today we're going to be working on lesson 1-3. This is in your Springboard book and it's talking about absolute value equations and inequalities. We're actually going to split this up into 2 days, and today we'll just talk about the equations and then next time we'll talk about the inequalities. So like I said, you will need your Springboard book and it's going to start on page 11. So on page 11, like I said, these learning targets, we are really only going to do the first one today, which is write, solve, and graph absolute value equations, okay? And then next time we'll do the inequalities. So it says here, you can use the definition of absolute value to solve absolute value equations algebraically. Okay, so then we jump over here and we read the math term. An absolute value equation is an equation involving the absolute value of a variable expression. Well, that's not great because they use the word to define the word. So hopefully we've heard of absolute value before. It is just like if we were trying to find the absolute value of -6, it would be in those bars like this. So hopefully you've seen that before. But absolute value is just the distance from 0. So you might want to jot this down. The distance from 0. Technically meaning like on a number line, but yeah, that's all you really need to know. The distance away a number is from 0 on a number line. Now, because we're using this term distance, it's also important to note that an absolute value cannot be negative. And the reason is because it's a distance. Have you guys ever heard of a negative distance? No, that's crazy. So another thing you might want to jot down. Absolute value cannot be negative. So for example, back to this one that I was talking about, the absolute value of -6 is 6, because -6 would be 6 units or a distance of 6 away from 0. Okay? And basically this is all just a mathematical way of explaining what I just said, so we can ignore that. And move on to example A. Okay? Now, because this is already worked out in your book for you, I'm not going to write it all out again, but I will walk you through step by step so that this is a good one to refer back to. Okay? So it's asking you to solve 2 times the absolute value of x minus 1 minus 5 equals 1. Okay, so right up there we're looking. Your first step is always going to be to isolate the absolute value expression. So that would be this part here within the bars, and it's asking you to isolate that, meaning get it by itself on that side of the equal sign. So as it says here, your first step to isolate would be to add that 5 to both sides. And that's how they get this 2 times the absolute value of x minus 1 equals 6. Okay. Then we still need to get rid of that 2 out front, which this is just like solving any equation. Because it's 2 times that absolute value, we need to divide by 2 on both sides. So that's how they get here at this absolute value of x minus 1 equals 3. Okay. Then from there, this is the nice part, is that you can separate this into 2 equations. And really all you're doing is taking the absolute value and setting it equal to the positive version and setting it equal to the negative version. And again, that's simply because a distance of 3 could go the positive way on a number line or the negative way. So then you're just solving those 2 equations, and here they got x equals 4 and x equals -2. So those are the 2 solutions here. Okay. Now this next part, they're just double checking, which is good to check your solutions. So all you have to do is plug your x values back in and make sure that it makes the equation true. And they did that, so that's good to go. And then the last part is it also said to graph the solutions on a number line, which when we're talking about an equation is very easy to do because you literally just have to say, okay, x equals -2, put a point on the number line. X equals 4, put a point on the number line. Gets a little bit trickier when we get to inequalities because we have to do a little bit of shading, but for equations, you're just putting a point right there on the solutions. Okay? So we are going to try these 4 examples down here. And you may want to get a separate sheet of paper because I know there's not a lot of room in the book. I'm going to try to get some space down here to do them. And you also may want to, I encourage you to pause the video whenever you need to. Okay, so let's start with A. And A is the absolute value of x minus 2 equals 3. Now remember, your first step is to always isolate the absolute value expression. But the nice part is in this one, it already is. So there's nothing else on that side with the absolute value. So we've already done that step basically. So what you would do now is split this up into your 2. And it would be x minus 2 equals 3. So written is exactly as we saw it. But then the other one has to be written as x minus 2 equals a -3. In case that were to go the other way on the number line, right? So then you're just going to solve each of these. So I would add 2 over. So x equals 5. And then I would add 2 over here. So x equals -1. And then on my number line, I could draw this out real quick. -1, 0, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I would just plot my points. And that's it. So that's example A. Okay. Then let's try example B. Excuse me. And that one is x plus 1 minus 4 equals -2. If you feel like you've got these and you can move ahead, go for it. So again, we need to isolate. So the first thing I would do, don't forget this step, is add the 4 over. That's going to leave me with the absolute value of x plus 1 equals 2. Okay, then I'm going to split mine up and I'm going to say x plus 1 equals 2, just as is. And x plus 1 equals -2. Move this down a little. And so over here, we'll have to subtract the 1 over, so we'll get 1. And here we'll have to subtract the 1 over, so we'll get -3. And I will create my quick little number line. -3, 0, or sorry, -2, -1, 0, 1. And I will plot those points. And that's that. Okay, let's go ahead and extend this page. We need a lot of room here, and we'll move on to C. And C is x minus 3, absolute value of x minus 3 plus 4 equals 4. All right, so again, first step, isolate. So we got to subtract this 4 over. And now this turns out a little bit weird because 4 minus 4 is 0, which is okay. But now when we go to split this up, we're going to write it as x minus 3 equals 0 and x minus 3 equals -0. Is -0 a thing? No. So in this case, we're actually only going to have one solution, which is a little bit different than what we've been seeing. But that's okay. Okay, so we would still just go ahead and solve this one. So we would get x equals 3 when we add the 3 over. And that would be your only solution in this one. There wouldn't be 2. Okay, so we would just have to say, okay, here's 3 on the number line. 0, 1, 2, 3, and we would put our point there. Okay, so it's okay to only get one solution. All right, then last one here is D, which we'll use another different color. And that one was absolute value of x plus 2 plus 3 equals 1. Okay, now, again, we need to isolate. And we get absolute value of x plus 2 equals a negative 2. Now, normally what we would do is split this up into 2, right? And we would keep solving. However, this is an issue. Okay? I want you to look hard at this and see what could be the issue here. Well, remember earlier when I told you guys that we cannot have an absolute value equal to a negative number? That's exactly what we have here. We have the absolute value of x plus 2 equal to negative 2. Now, that's different than what we did here. Here, we had an absolute value set equal to a positive, and then we split it up and set it to a negative. Here, we had an absolute value set equal to a positive, and then we split it up. See how there are no absolute values here? Okay, so that's the difference. It's when you're isolating in that step, if you get your absolute value, set equal to a negative, your answer is actually going to be no solution. You can't have it, okay? So that's important to realize. And obviously, if there's no solution, then we can't graph it on a number line, okay? So again, if at any point you got a little tricked up, go back, pause the video, and look at my work, okay? Last thing we're going to talk about on the next page, number 1 asks how many solutions are possible for an absolute value equation having the form of what we were just doing, okay? And obviously, we saw the first 3 examples had 2 solutions. What happened when we set it positive and what happened when we set it negative. Then we also saw that example C where we only got 1 solution because when we went and isolated the absolute value, it was set equal to 0, okay? But then that last example we just did, we also realized we could have 0 solutions, okay? So that's how many solutions are possible. You could have 2, 1, or none. You'll never have more than that, okay? All right, so that is how to solve absolute value equations. You got a few good examples there, and tomorrow we will do some more examples on our Zoom. So please come with any questions that you may have. All right, thank you. Have a good one.